one of our goals in this negotiation is to try to keep nurses from the greater Taunton area in the area. This historically has been a community hospital, and it has thrived as a community hospital, serving our community with nurses within the community. M&A has done some fabulous research to find out where the nurses in our area are actually going. And we found that a good percentage of them, 63% of the nurses that are living in our area are not working in our area. They're going elsewhere. A third of them are going to Boston, and the rest are going to the Brockton area. Either way, they're not staying here. We need to be able to retain the nurses that are in our area to work in our area, because that's how you build a good foundation for a community hospital. So our idea is to try to recruit from around here. The people that live here are the people that want to take care of their neighbors. They're the ones that want to take care of the kid that, rides his bike down the street past your house every day. That's what community hospitals are. And that's why we stay in our community, to care for those in our community. When we had a rally in order to inform the public about these issues, we had such wonderful support, not only from our members, but from the citizens, the local politicians, the local township. People showed up, people supported us. The feeling of support was palpable. The celebration of local medical assistance and just the support of all the trials and tribulations that we've been through lately was so strong and just so encouraging for us as healthcare providers. So we're currently working on mapping our facility. We plan to get a 1 to 3 day vote for strike authorization sometime in the very near future. It doesn't seem that management will take us seriously any other way and really choose to deal with the issues that are going to make substantive differences with our bargaining situation. So that is our current effort. The other thing that I think makes a huge difference is, I don't know if you guys have heard of the unsafe assignment class that we have going on, but I had the pleasure of taking one of the first classes, and it was such an eye-opening class that I think everybody should take it. I cannot wait to hand the paperwork over to the supervisor who tries to give me a patient in an unsafe assignment, so that I can let them know that I am not accepting this unsafe assignment, which is a very specific way of phrasing it. You'll learn when you take the class. But I think that this is a very strong way for us to take back our practice from the hospitals that we work at, from Stewart at large, and reclaim our profession. I wouldn't hesitate to take class again. And I think that everybody should take this class, everybody in the room, and make sure that you sign up one of your friends to take it with you, because everybody should learn this strategy. It is our way of reclaiming our profession. It's immensely important. So please do take the time. It's not a long class, but it will impact your practice if wielded properly.
I was not a member of the bargaining unit when I first got to Mercy, because per diems were not included. But about 3 years ago, we were brought in, and then I became co-chair. Shortly thereafter, we started negotiations for our new contract, which we just finished in the fall after 364 days of negotiating. It was a really long, hard negotiation. We did a lot of actions with our members, a lot of standouts at the hospital. We also went out to the community, to local churches, and got support from community members. Also, throughout our negotiations, in the beginning of the negotiations, we had a CNO who reported 2 of our very active members, including my co-chair, to the board for what we thought were frivolous reasons. We had filed grievances for any disciplines. But then we also found out at our sister facility, Providence, 2 other active members had also been reported to the board by the same CNO. We felt like she was using this as an extra contractual discipline that we didn't have a way to grieve against. And it was being used as retaliation for members being vocal. So we filed ULP charges for retaliation, and we had a great board agent that helped us see those through. We did end up getting a settlement in which we had a posting that the hospital had to state that they would not do anything to retaliate against our members for being active and participating in the union. One of our members that also had incurred legal fees on his own to defend against the Bourne charge got his legal fees reimbursed by the hospital as well. After we got that, we were able to go to the Catholic Labor Network and get a letter of support from them, because Mercy and Trinity are both supposed to be faith-based organizations. And the letter basically said that they were not acting consistent with what their core values should be, and that they should be treating our employees in a better manner and being more fair to us. We took that letter to local politicians. We also sent it to regional management within Trinity. And then it seemed shortly thereafter, negotiations started to improve, and we were finally able to settle on a contract. So since we finished our contract negotiations, shortly after, we had the whole Kronos debacle issue that other institutions have been dealing with also. And for us, we had negotiated certain pay advantages for our members, including a retroactive raise, a retention bonus, and also increases in certain differentials. And without having access to Kronos, all of that was affected. We also, when it initially went down, the way Trinity chose to continue with paying people was they looked to your paycheck that was 2 weeks previous to the one that was due and based your income on that. And that paycheck happened to be right the week of Thanksgiving, which some people had holiday pay because they worked. So their salary was increased compared to what it normally would be. And for others, they took time off for vacation. Some people were out on disability or FMLA. And so their salaries were way decreased. So we had a lot of adjustments that had to be made. And it's taken several weeks to get through it. Many emails back and forth with payroll and management, because we were told, oh, it's fixed, it's resolved. But we had several members coming to us saying their paychecks were not resolved. They were missing PTO time, or PTO time had been used when it shouldn't have been used, because they had used it 2 weeks previous, so it came out again. So we've had to get those adjustments. And finally, after all of the emails back and forth, they agreed to have a payroll person come in person. And any one of our members that wanted to bring in a paycheck and sit down face to face and go over it and have an explanation and make sure everything got correct finally happened this past week. So members should be getting all the correct adjustments. And hopefully this week, they are also going in and figuring out how much everybody is due for the retention bonus, and that should finally be paid as well. One of the other highlights I thought that we developed during our negotiations this time was the use of Facebook and videos for our members. After the prior contract was ratified, there were a lot of members that complained that they didn't know what was happening throughout the process. So as a committee, we decided we really wanted to be transparent throughout our negotiations and make sure everybody was up to date. Of course, we try and do walkthroughs, but with everybody's schedule and COVID, it was really difficult. So my co-chair, Alex Wright, and one of our other reps, Jamie Hyatt, after every negotiation session would sit down and make a video going over what happened in negotiations, good or bad, what issues we were dealing with, and what the next step was going to be. And it would just be about a 5-minute video, but they would post it on our Facebook page. And it gave all our members access to stay up to date. And we felt like the video was a great format because people didn't have to sit and read. It was quick, and it was a great way to get all that information to them in real time and keep everybody up to date. So by the time we got to ratifying the contract, everybody knew what changes were going to happen with our contract.
We currently are in negotiations right now with the hospital, and it's been, I would say, not too amicable. Right now, this will be, this is February now, February the 8th. And as of the Thursday, the 10th, this will be our 18th session with the hospital. We've made some agreements with the hospital, some small things, but really not the major issues that we've been facing. And we find that the hospital has been pretty hesitant about really getting the contract that we'd like to have. In addition to that, we've also been bringing up the multiple issues in regard to these safeties for patients throughout the hospitals. For example, in the last year, the number of safety reports have gone up exponentially, at least quadrupled from what they were last year per month. I'll just give you an example of a funny story that happened during negotiations in regard to the salary. So we originally proposed 6% raise for all the nurses, and in addition to that, another step as well too, the very top step on our scale. So we basically were in there, and we were going back and forth regarding negotiations. The hospital would come back maybe a 0.25% decrease, and so forth. But we got to a point when we realized, and this is maybe the fifth or sixth time we met, maybe a little bit longer, but fifth or sixth time that we met, that we found out how much more other hospitals were getting, not just pay, but also incentives. Basically people for who were coming to the hospital, other hospitals were giving them a bonus. They also were giving retention bonuses on top of that and increased salary. And we found that the Brigham was not doing any of that. So when we came to one session, we basically sat there, and the hospital attorney was basically saying, well, you're not coming down. You came down a little bit. We were at 5.5. And he basically said, you're not coming down any further than that. And this was not rehearsed. This was not scripted, but all 17 of us at the same time, literally basically put our hand down on the table and said, and we're not going to. We draw the line in the sand. This is our demarcation line. We're not going beyond this. And it was kind of funny because we didn't plan it, but that kind of showed the unity of the committee, and that we're like, look, we're sick of this. Our nurses that we represent and ourselves are very angry, and we feel that the hospital is disrespecting us in regards to not just pay, but also not listening to us. I work in the recovery area. I find that the hospital is basically, once we get back up to full capacity, right now we're at maybe half capacity for surgeries. I think next week we're going back full force. The hospital just cares about patients getting in and getting out. They don't really care about a lot of the safety issues that we brought up. They're not addressing it. There are safety issues throughout the hospital, but it's not just my area. It goes out through in the entire hospital as well too. And that is one of the things that basically is unifying all the nurses, whether they be new nurses. I've got people who are maybe been a 2-year nurse with us, to anybody who's been 40 years. And they are basically really angry about the entire situation. As a committee, we want to make sure that everyone's informed. So we work as a committee. Every time we negotiate, by the end of the day, we go through with Joe Markman, and we basically come up with a summary, all the points that came up during that negotiations, just to make sure that everyone's informed. So we'll have that emailed out to everybody. In addition, we also have a Facebook page, which we posted on as well too. The more informed we are, the stronger we'll be.
Though the pandemic is slowing down, the MOT, mandatory overtime, is ongoing. We have approximately 52 travelers, which is about 1/5 of our nursing workforce. We also have respiratory travelers, lab travelers, and radiology travelers. Almost our entire radiology department has quit after their manager told them they wouldn't be getting their summer vacations and promptly went on vacation. Our management leadership is completely disconnected. We have been hemorrhaging nurses, which has only worsened. I thought losing 18 nurses in over 2 months was bad. And then we lost 18 nurses in just the month of December. We're not getting any applicants either. We just had 3 new nurse orientations in a row where we didn't have any permanent staff hired. The constant disrespect and contract violations by our management is horrible. We wiped out over 100 grievances when we ratified our contract in the fall of 2020, and we are back up to over 100 grievances. We have had some go to arbitration already. We have many more in the pipeline going to arbitration. So we have started a video and email campaign. We have nursing staff that are making videos and writing emails to the COO, CNO, and the CEO of our hospital. And they are new nurses, young nurses, older nurses, retired nurses, and nurses that have quit. The nurses still in the bargaining unit that are telling what their experience is on the floors, what it's like to work on the floors, why they quit, why they may have gone into retirement when they did, the increase in falls, the decrease in ability to care for patients properly, injuries to patients and staff, they're all ongoing. Since we started the campaign, we've sent about 15 to 18 emails so far. We've received two canned responses, one of which our CNO uses words too big for him to understand, like sequestered, and making statements like, I'm not going over the things that we've done to make things better again. There are days when it feels like what is happening is union busting. Dedicated union nurses are leaving and positions are not being filled permanently. We need to protect the fabric of our union membership. I know we are all going through something similar. So if anyone has any suggestions on how we can continue our fight, we gladly welcome them. We will not give up our fight for patient and staff safety.
So our negotiations started over the summer. We won our election in February, and our first bargaining session, I think, was in June. The hospital had asked for all of our proposals, especially the economics, to be presented before they would begin responding. So we worked really hard over the summer to get all that together. And then as the fall and winter have gone on, we have been getting a little bit back from the hospital, but really not very much. One of the things we found, and that's been kind of challenging, is that some of the emergency things we needed to do because of COVID, because of very poor staffing, have taken up some of our time in bargaining. So the hospital has asked us to talk to them about some of those issues, which has been both wonderful because we have a seat at the table. They can't just do things without talking to us. But it also has given the hospital sort of an excuse to say, oh, we didn't get to all your proposals, or, we haven't been digging into the substance because we've had to deal with the vaccine mandate or staffing incentives and bonuses, redeployment. So we've worked on that, which has been also, like I said, great, but also we feel like they're kind of trying to take some time away from our bargaining proposals. One really interesting thing the lawyer said was that it's very challenging for the hospital because so much has been added to their plates and they have to do so much with so few people. And our bargaining unit really got a kick out of that because that's exactly what happens to nurses all the time. So we had no sympathy for that particular argument and let them know it. So I don't think they're going to make that argument again. We are very encouraged. Recently, we just started getting into, the hospital gave us their first wage proposal. It's not comprehensive, but it did show that they were willing to commit to a step scale and asked if they were on the right track, which again shows that they want to make sure that we're digging into some of the real meat of the issues. So we're very encouraged by that. And we're trying to make sure that the hospital knows we're only gaining strength in our bargaining and our members are really interested in getting this done. So that's all kind of coming together nicely. And we're hoping, to keep the pressure on so we can really dig into those issues. My personal favorite issue that I really want to address is charge without an assignment. I feel like when you have a job that already takes all of your heart, soul, and energy, and they give you a second job on top of that, which is being in charge, it's not fair. So we really have talked a lot about whether we call it a resource team. Our clinical educators are a great resource for our units. Charge without an assignment. We're kind of starting to dig into those issues as well. And that's also been really kind of fun because the hospital says, oh, it's so expensive. That's going to cost us so much money. Well, that's what you've been getting away with all this time. This is the true cost of what our nurses need. So the fact that you've been getting a deal for this long doesn't mean it's not going to be expensive. And it doesn't mean that we're going to give any ground on it.
So one of our challenges has been communication. It's something the hospital has not been great with. We wanted to be very transparent, the good, the bad, and the ugly. This is what's really going on, so that our members really felt connected to the process. And so communication was a big goal. The first thing that we wanted to do was create a name for ourselves, which was Milford Nurses United. We came up with our little slogan, United We Nurse, with dignity, compassion, respect, which is based on the hospital's own logos. We created a newsletter that we could put out after every negotiation session so that everybody could know pretty easily a quick snapshot of what's going on with sessions. All our sessions have been open, especially because most of our nurses are new to being in a union. We haven't had a lot of people turn up. We've had enough. We did buttons, which was fun, and that was a good one. We've been doing Black Fridays where we have nurses and people supporting our union movement wearing black every Friday until we have a contract. A lot of selfies on Facebook, and it's just a fun thing to do to show solidarity. When negotiations slowed down in the fall, we did a petition, which was like a huge Declaration of Independence style poster where we had hundreds of nurses signing it from all over the hospital, and that felt good. And then coming next week, we have our 1 year anniversary, and we're going to do a press conference and just a rally get together and just kind of keep the momentum going, get us across the finish line with this.
So Beverly Hospital is in our we just finished our 8th negotiation session. It seems to be taking a long time. Management's been kind of kicking things down the road. We started early in October, hoping that we would be completed before our contract expires, maybe even before then, because we know that retention and recruitment at Beverly Hospital in Addison Gilbert is a real problem. We've lost 40% of our workforce just in the last 2.5 years. And we've lost at least 101 nurses just in the last 5 months, despite our urging the managers to move forward and get through our next negotiations. Our main focuses then are wages and benefits. Salem Hospital is way ahead of us. We're about 16, 18% lower than Salem Hospital's top steps. So we're trying to get all the steps higher, or at least where Salem Hospital is. Management has moved from, they're at least focusing a little bit on the older steps. But they're not paying enough attention to the first few steps in order to recruit new nurses and then retain them. Our other issue that we're really focusing on is getting mandatory overtime out of our contract, because we are the highest in the region for mandatory overtime, which we all know is against the law.
As Lauren stated, we have been very active the past couple of years. We maintain a Facebook page where we're able to let folks know what's going on, and people are able to IMS with concerns or post on Facebook. We also, because of staffing has been so bad, especially since COVID, we had a petition, and we got more than 500 nurses to physically sign this petition that we gave to our Director of Nurses, Kim Perryman, back in December of 2020, which was giving them the heads up that we were getting motivated. We didn't see much improvement. We had a new head CEO for the hospital, Tom Sands. We ended up planning and carrying out an awesome picket that we did in June. It was well attended by our nurses, and I think it made them nervous enough that they actually had someone there with note paper ticking off the people going by so they knew how many of us were there. It was covered by the news. We also we're attempting to get a strike vote together because our contract is done the end of March, and we feel like there could be a little faster because we're losing a lot of people. We're bleeding nurses right now. It's very unsafe. We don't even have enough aides right now. It's terribly unsafe as family and patients. So we're trying to get up a 3-day strike vote So we're working on that. We have talked to mayors. We've spoken to the Gloucester mayor, Mr. Verga. We've spoken to the Mr. Cahill and Beverly. This past summer, we were speaking to the counselors. We have done interviews with the newspaper, not myself, but Lon and Ariana. And we have been in the newspaper, Boston Herald, Salem, couple other papers, and it's also been clips about it on the news.
We have received awesome support from the North Shore Labor Council, and we welcome any further support that we can get from all of our members.
We know we're not alone in the staffing issue. Many institutions are unsafe and don't have enough staff. That's why we're all in this together, and we all need to support each other. Hang tough.
I'm a member of our healthcare professionals bargaining unit, which bargained for our very first contract ever through the M&A, with the M&A's help with the VNA. We had 88% success in initially forming our union as far as yes votes. We fought through a work stoppage we had a 1-week work stoppage last July. We had 2 petitions that we brought to the CEO of our agency, signed by 100% of our members. Each time, they could never get any daylight between us. They could never wedge anything in order to try to break down our union and our bargaining unit. Finally, after 2.5 years, a lot of struggle, a lot of holding people back from taking other jobs with competitors who offered better wages and benefits, we're finally able to achieve our contract with a settlement and a ratification on February 23rd, 2022, after 2.5 years of bargaining. We're so very proud. People are so happy. We have people who've been so underpaid, grossly underpaid by this agency for a number of years. This gives pay equity to a lot of people and really brings their standard of living up through this contract. So other aspects of the contract that we're really proud of, we do have a grievance and arbitration procedure now, which we did not have before. So we have protection from discipline and from managers who would otherwise let someone go, discipline them for unjust reasons. We're super proud of that. We finally got back our retirement match, which is something we have not had for 5 years. 5 years of no retirement match. So we finally have that back in place. We have productivity expectations. We're able to negotiate improved productivity for our visits. As you know, different types of visits require different amounts of time and effort by the clinician. We're able to secure a really strong language for our members for our productivity, which we're thrilled about. We have very strong vacation language in there for folks. When you've worked over 10 years, you'll have 5 weeks vacation, which is awesome. And that's guaranteed now and locked into our contract.
This is my second contract that I've had the pleasure of negotiating. I need to say that this was probably the most difficult out of the two. It was a very grueling contract that we had to negotiate with management, who just did not want to acknowledge how hard we work and how, just what the economy is around us, basically, and also just what's happening in the nursing field in general with shortage. So after 6 grueling months, we did come to a pretty good agreement to protect our members once again, with a fair and equitable salary increase. We were a little behind in that area. And also we were able to negotiate some other benefits. We do already have a very good contract as far as PTO and vacation and all that stuff and sick time. But we were able to negotiate another holiday, and some language in regards to our productivity aspect, which is very impactful on our day because our patients are very, very complicated, and the management needs to acknowledge how hard and how long these visits sometimes take. So we were successful in that. And I'm very happy to say that we have a fair, equitable contract, and I'll be ready for the next negotiations.
So both the HCPs and the nurses were both bargaining with the VNA at the same time, but we had never done a bargaining before for a contract. This was our first contract. So we really sought out the guidance of our very experienced bargaining committee of our nurses. to figure out how do we move forward to get to close the deal on our contract. And we really did that by communicating via email, text messages, bump-ins in the community, phone calls, to really understand how best to encourage our members to be forthright and to be steadfast in what we want, as well as how do we close the deal. And that was really something that was really valuable to us and valuable to me as a chair to learn how to do that. So for our future contracts.
So we, as a bargaining unit, were able to coordinate very closely with the healthcare professionals as one cohesive unit. And we were able to get a group email, do text, as Rod said, and phone calls, and really solidify ourselves as one bargaining unit, even though we were negotiating separately. We arranged a petition with 100% of every registered nurse and 100% of all healthcare professionals and presented it to senior management. We were able to negotiate together, back each other. The healthcare professionals were able to solidify some dates with the management, and we were able to have them come to a pretty steadfast agreement, and then we were able to close out our contract pretty close to the same time within the next day. We both had fair, equitable contracts because we worked closely together as one strong unit.
We have been involved in negotiations now over a few years since we voted our union in 2018. It has been a very challenging and long process. We have gone through the pandemic, we have gone through a desert vote, and we have gone through multiple changes of management on the hospital side. Right now, we are in the final phases of our negotiations, which is very exciting, very stressful. And we're really hoping that we can wrap it up in the next week or so. So we have really hung in there and worked very hard to achieve our goals. We, of course, like everyone else, we started out with this contract that was the ideal and the utopian document that we all dream about. But we have made many compromises over the course of our time. But we are very proud of the document that we have. It provides for a lot of improvements in the hospital. We were able to secure positions on important committees for nurses to have a voice in operations of the hospital. We were able to really get a concrete process about scheduling and vacation times, holiday times. We did not get nurse-patient ratios. However, we did get very good language on staffing, which holds the hospital really accountable for, really being committed to staffing our units well. And we have battled back and forth on our wage proposal. We are waiting for responses from the hospital on union recognition. We are waiting for their response on union rights, and we are also waiting for response on our wage proposal and staffing for our family-centered unit. So once those issues are resolved, and we're very, very close on all of them, we will be ready to move to the next step, which is also daunting. Every phase of this has been way more challenging than I ever dreamed it would be, for sure. But we have really stuck in there, and our core group of committee members have been working tirelessly, putting in so many hours, doing standouts. We had an informational picket. We've been very fortunate to have a lot of support in our community from other unions and the Central Labor Council. We also had a lot of support from our local legislators and some on the state level. So hopefully we will wrap this up, and the next time we have something to report, we will have our contract in place.